bringing a plane to market and the different types of buyers and sellers. Hello, Jake Huling here with Aircraft Sales Advisor. I'd like to welcome you to the third report in a new series called 9 Steps to Successful Sale or Purchase of Your Plane. In the last report, we discussed the Blue Book appraisal and how it's only one piece of the information needed to get an accurate appraisal on a plane. We went on to talk about the 4 different sources of information that you would need to get an accurate appraisal. We also covered the importance of not only looking at planes currently on the market, but also in finding at least 3 recently sold planes that are similar to yours or the one you are looking to buy. If you haven't watched the first and second video reports in this series, I recommend you check them out first, and I will put a link to them down below the video. In this third video report, I promised you we would go over the different ways to bring a plane to market, the margin differences between wholesale and retail, and what that means to you when buying and selling. We're also going to cover how to go about the search for a plane and the different types of buyers and sellers. And lastly, we'll cover the commission rates, what they should be and should not be, and the different types of percentage-based commissions. As I've said before, I like to keep my reports as short as possible, so hang on to your seats. We're going to get right down to business. To begin with, let's talk about bringing your plane to market and the different types of buyers and sellers. Now, at this point, there are several different factors to consider when deciding how you want to bring your plane to market. It's going to be your desired asking price, your time frame for selling, and 3, if you are selling only or if you will also be buying a new plane. Now, something that's important to understand is that different asking prices will require different buyers and different strategies to reach those buyers. And if you are a buyer, this is also a good opportunity to decide what type of buyer you are. There are really 2 different categories that a buyer generally falls into: wholesale and retail. Wholesale buyers are looking to buy a plane at the low end of the price range. An example might be, let's say, a broker who has a buyer or backer and is looking at planes as an investment, where they want to buy low and sell high. It could also be an individual or company who buys planes at wholesale prices, flies the planes until it's depreciated, and then sells for a retail price. Something to keep in mind is that this approach can also be a great way to help pay for your flying. Now, if you are the seller, you would generally look for this type of buyer if you wanted to sell quickly and you didn't need to get a higher retail price for your plane. A retail buyer, on the other hand, is usually an individual or company looking more for a quality plane and a fair price than they are a deal. They're also more likely to be looking for and willing to pay for a plane with upgrades and or lower total time on the airframe and engines. A word of caution here for the sellers: it usually takes more time to find this type of buyer and requires more active and focused marketing. This is where identifying the buying paths that we talked about in the last report becomes important. So if you are looking for this type of buyer, factor in extra time into your equation. That way you won't get caught off guard or frustrated during the sales process, because I do see that happen quite often. Now, let's cover the margin differences between wholesale and retail. This amount can vary quite a bit depending on the plane that we're talking about. So to keep this simple and to give you an idea of what the differences can be, I'm going to use a King Air B200, and I'm going to use the 2007 model. The wholesale price for this plane is listed as $2.64 million, and the retail price is listed at $3 million. So here you'd have a difference of $360,000. And just like finding a retail buyer can take longer, so can finding a plane to buy at a wholesale price. So again, factor in extra time. There is one exception to this rule of extra time, and that is if you knew of an off-market plane already, or you found a broker who knew of one or was good at finding you one. That can actually save you some time here. Next, let's talk about how to search for your plane. Because if you are buying, how do you go about finding the right plane? Well, again, it depends on whether you want to buy at a wholesale or retail price. If you look on some of the more popular listing sites on the internet, like Controller, for example, you're going to find almost all retail planes. And if there's one that ever gets advertised for a wholesale price, the difficulty is that by the time you try to get to the owner to talk to them about buying it, it's already sold. It's a challenge that's hard to overcome. If you want to buy a plane at a wholesale price, your best approach is to find one that's off market. And again, that's done by either you knowing of one or having a broker who knows of one or is good at finding those off-market planes. And remember, when choosing a broker, be careful who you work with, because it makes all the difference in the world. commission rates, what they should be and should not be. There are several different factors that will determine the commission rate. The price of the plane that you are selling or buying, and whether there are one or two planes involved. What do I mean? Well, an example would be if you're selling one plane in order to buy a different one. Pretty simple. And if there are two planes involved, the commission rate should really reflect that. So let's go over what the broker should be doing for you in each of these scenarios and a commission percentage range for each one of these. The first scenario would be if you are selling or buying only one plane. Excuse me. If selling, the broker should be responsible for and pay for all marketing, all advertising, and promotion of your plane. They should be taking care of all of the calls coming in and sorting through all the tire kickers and the information seekers to get to the serious offers. Once they bring you a serious offer, they should also be responsible for going back and doing any renegotiating that's necessary if you decide to make a counter offer. They should also be able to give you an idea of what the buyer is actually willing to pay and why they believe that. They also need to make sure when the time comes that the buyer has the correct amount of money deposited into the escrow account. Now, if you are a buyer, the broker should be providing you with a complete list of planes for sale, both on and off market, with both the listing prices and, after contacting the owner or broker, once again, an idea of what they will actually take. They should be responsible for any and all negotiations needed to get you the best purchase price for the plane that you're interested in. They should also do a complete review of the logbooks and make sure there are no hidden surprises, including damage history, repairs done at questionable facilities, and they should make sure there's nothing coming up due for maintenance, both big and small, that you don't already know about. That's a really important one. In this scenario, let's start out with the value of a plane being somewhere between $1.5 and $3.5 million. The commission range should be somewhere between 2% and 4% of the sale or purchase price. If the plane's value is much lower, you might find brokers have a minimum commission rate that they charge. I'm going to tell you that a minimum commission for a single-sided transaction in this range should never go much above $50,000. And if the value of your plane is higher than $3.5 million, all the way up to a $12 or $13 million jet, they should be offering you a reduced commission rate. The very highest a commission should be, even for a very expensive plane, shouldn't be much over $100,000 to maybe $120,000 at the very top of the range. And they should be providing you with all of the services that we talked about, not just part of them. The second scenario is when you have a two-sided transaction. You're selling a plane and you're buying another one. In this case, the broker should provide you all of the services mentioned that we talked about in the first scenario, and better still, they should offer you a sliding or reduced commission that's based on the total transaction for both planes. So instead of paying, let's say, a 3% commission for the sale of a plane and a 3% on the purchase of your next plane, the commission is instead reduced to, say, let's say 2% of the total transaction for both planes combined. If you are selling and buying a plane, this is a great way to save some money by combining these. So that's it for this report. In the next one, we're going to cover selling a plane on your own, the pros and cons of this approach, the importance of keeping control of your information, it's vital, and how to handle brokers when they call you in this scenario. So that's the next report. Thank you so much for joining me on this third step in my newest series of reports called 9 Steps to a Successful Sale or Purchase of Your Plane. This is Jake Huling with Aircraft Sales Advisor. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.